every day to create deeper rapport with. So we're talking about key people. So with that, you guys, let's talk about content first. I'm going to share my screen. Stop me along the way. If you've got questions, drop it in the chat or the Q&A box. I'm just getting organized here. So, okay, good. Okay. So the first thing I want to recommend for those of you who are here that we do not do content for, um, make sure you're posting 3 times a week. This is a goofy photo, but this is important. This goofy photo is important. Um, actually, let's start here. So this is our guide, and I'll send you the link to this afterwards when I send the recording. But just a 15-minute guide. You're going to do 4 steps every day. Actually, one of them 3 times a week is posting content. Every day is better, actually. But if you can do a minimum of 3 times a week, we'll talk about the type of content that's getting the most response right now. Inbox management, making sure that every day you're checking on that inbox, whether it's from the activity that we're doing on your behalf or other notifications coming through from people commenting on your content, whatever that is. Just taking a few minutes every day to manage your inbox and your notifications. Engagement, which brings us to the whiteboard I just showed you. I'll pop that up here again in just a moment. And then rapport building with key connections. So those are the 4 steps every single day. If you invest 2 or 3 or 4 minutes in these 4 steps, what it's gonna do is actually create a lot more awareness around your brand. And when you do that webinar as your conversion, it's going to bring a lot more people to your webinar. So let's start with content. You guys, I got 2 posts up here. All right, this is my friend Nikki Clark. Nikki's wonderful. Love what she does. She's a fellow marketer in the industry. If you guys need a new website, if you're designing a new brochure, a new logo, those sort of things, that's where Nikki shines. I wanted to show this to you. Nikki gets a lot of interaction on her content on LinkedIn. Um, these are the types of things that do really well on LinkedIn right now. There was a time back in the day, which makes me feel old, but maybe even 2 years ago, there was a time when you could put out a guide for something business related, and that would do really well. That was the sort of educational thing that LinkedIn was leaning into. Now it is a lot more personal than that. So I brought this one up. This is just a picture of me and my daughter Eden walking around downtown DeLand, Florida. It was in my camera roll. And the post is just, all about mindset and living today. It's not a business post. It is more a personal post than anything else. And not that it got a ton of interaction, but it got some good exposure, right? 702 impressions. What we're looking for is typically social media content is going to get between 6 and 10% reach. So if you got a network of 1,000 people, you might expect 60 to 100 people to see. If you got a network of 10,000 people, then you'd expect 600 to 1,000 people to see your content. So these are the types of posts, and this one, for example, right? Promoting a webinar that we did a couple months ago. 374 impressions, got half the impressions. It has a business purpose. This one really doesn't have a business purpose. If I scroll far enough back, I'll share with you. Many of you know I was on this road trip in January out to Lake Tahoe to go snowboarding with some friends. I posted a picture one time of myself with my truck and my camper in front of a rock at Zion, and you guys have got like almost 3,000 impressions. And then maybe the next week I posted something like 20 questions to break the ice with a new connection, and it got like 200 impressions. And you're like, wait a second, this picture of me in front of the rock does not matter. It's a pretty picture. Maybe it says something about, what about who I am personally, not just professionally. Um, the guide for 20 questions to ask a new connection to break the ice is so much more valuable from a business perspective, but LinkedIn isn't giving any favor to that type of content anymore. So this is a small, close-knit group that's in here right now. So I'll let you know there's a cat that's walking across my keyboard. So for the webinar yesterday, I had the door shut. I forgot to do that for this one. My apologies. So that's content. What I would recommend is you post content a minimum of 3 times a week. In the content that you post, celebrate somebody, celebrate an organization that you support. Talk a little bit about something you do personally, not just professionally. Give people a glimpse into who you are. After all, one of the key components for bringing on a new client is know you, like you, trust you. That's probably 3 key components. But understand that it is really important for people to get an idea of who you are, not just professionally, but personally. And it is that personal content that is actually making a much larger impression on LinkedIn now. What time frame do I base numbers of impressions? 24 hours, 7 days. Tim, I find that if I post a decent piece of content, it's actually still getting interactions maybe 2 weeks later. So while if we can get impressions quick on our content, then LinkedIn's going to show it to more people. So that's where Post Party comes in, right? So a tool like Post Party that some of you are taking advantage of is designed to get a lot of interaction on your content in the first 2 hours after you post it, right? So those 2 hours are really important as far as LinkedIn scoring your content for exposure. But so I'd probably look back on them months later, Tim. I look at the analytics pretty often, right? So I look at the content analytics pretty often, and I'm still going back 30 and 60 days sometimes. But I would say most posts are going to exhaust themselves probably within about 72 hours. Right. So some posts, if it's a quality post, you might still get some interaction a week or two later, but most posts about 72 hours is probably the life cycle of the post. Good question. All right. Let's talk about our inbox, right? We come into LinkedIn. I just cleaned mine up, but if we come into LinkedIn, oftentimes, let me get to home. I've only got one message right now, but I probably 15 minutes ago hopped on here before we were jumping in just to open up some things. But all the notifications that come through every day, I'm always looking at those. Um, Messages are most important. Also, my network, right? So I'm looking at who sent invitations. Here's an important tab to pay attention to. This catch up tab. This is everybody who started a new job, right? That might indicate some money in motion indicators for you guys, right? Started a new job. Here you go. This is Kevin the cat. Kevin, sorry about the distraction. So we're looking for people who started new jobs. There might be a rollover opportunity that might give you an opportunity to start a new conversation to catch that money in motion. Obviously, people who are asking to connect with you, those are very important. There's also, I want to look at my network and see how many connections I've accumulated in whatever given time frame, right? So 21 hours, 5 hours, 18 minutes, 18 minutes. So, so I'm always looking at that, and I'm paying note to who those people are. Haley Ellis might be a really nice person for me to know. We just connected yesterday. So I pay very close attention to who these people are that we're connecting with, right? And then, of course, messages. So you want to manage your messaging in your inbox as well. So anyway, so pay attention to this. Now, those of you who are active in your social advisor's dashboard, you will see these messages there as well. So check on those items. That's only going to take you, I do that 3-4 times a day, but it only takes me a couple minutes every time at that point. Now, I want to talk about engagement, and this is a really important one. So let me pull up my whiteboard again. Trying to see who's on here. Mark Ellswig's here today. He's on this list. Rylan. I'm just looking for other names here. So anyway, so here's what this is. This is a list that sits right next to my desk of people that are either prospects, influencers, clients, people with whom I want to interact with consistently. every day I choose about 5 names off that list. I go to their profile. So if I go to Mark's, he was on that list. And I want to see what their most recent post is. There's a featured post. Mark and I did a couple things together. So I might pop on Mark's most recent post and offer my commentary on his post. Now, where that tool post party I mentioned a little while ago is really important is it gives you that early interaction, but those aren't the people that you're prospecting. Those aren't the people that you want to get closer to for personal or business purposes. When I choose Mark, Mark definitely is, right? So I want to take a look and just show up in Mark's sphere. Typically, what ends up happening is if I'm showing up on Mark's posts, Mark starts showing up on my posts, right? LinkedIn bakes that into the algorithm. So now the people I'm interacting with or the people I'm messaging are actually getting greater exposure to my content. So every day I'll choose 3 to 5 people off that list. If I got a little extra time, I might do 7 that day. And I want to go interact with one of their posts. I want to be highly visible for these people. Again, they might be a past or future webinar guest. They might be a past or future podcast guest, maybe a client, maybe a prospect, maybe someone who has a lot of influence over the audience that I'm trying to attract and influence as well. And that list is always evolving. Right. So I keep really close. So that's the third thing you want to do every single day is just pick 3 to 5 people to interact with their content. Now, the next is rapport building. And let me throw Kevin on the ground again. You guys, I'm really sorry about that. Usually I'd shut the door and I didn't do that before we got on. So this next one is probably your single best way of starting 7, 10, 12 conversations every single week. So if you go under me, this little icon in the nav bar up top, and you click the down arrow and you go to settings and privacy. Again, I'll send you the recording of all this. And go to data privacy and then get a copy of your data. Now, the only thing we need to click here is connections. So again, for those who are maybe taking notes, that was under the Me drop-down arrow, settings and privacy, data privacy, and then get a copy of your data. This button here, I'm going to hit it, and it says request pending. About 10 minutes from now, I'll get an email from LinkedIn, or I could just come back and refresh this page. That same button is going to say download archive. When you hit that button, LinkedIn's going to send you a CSV of all your connections. And it's going to have five pieces of data on it. First name, last name, position, company, and date you connected. It's going to have your most recent connections first. So if you think about the activity that we're running on your behalf, right? All of those people that you're connecting with are going to go through a campaign of sorts. Some of you are running just a LinkedIn campaign. Others are running a LinkedIn plus email campaign. Now, all of that takes time. So a typical campaign is going to take about 2 weeks to run. So when you get this CSV file, the people who are within 2 weeks of the date you downloaded that file, they're still in the campaign. Leave them alone, right? Let the campaign do its thing to warm up rapport. Now, if it is after 2 weeks, now these people are fair game. Hopefully you've got other emails going out to them, keeping your brand in front of them. I don't want them to just reach the end of the campaign we do together and then drop into oblivion and you never communicate with them again. So you should have content going out, email going out, whether we're helping you with your newsletter or you're doing that through another provider. But once they've reached the end of the campaign, now they're fair game for this strategy. Every day, I'd like you to pick 3 people off that list. Three key people, right? We're going to connect you with some really good people. Some of them aren't going to be perfect. You might say, I don't really need to talk to that person. So skip to the next person. But on that spreadsheet, pick 3 people. And just who am I going to use? Tim, how about we use you for today? Because you've been the only one that's asked me a question so far. So, Tim, if we jump on your profile here. Now, if you're one of those people on my spreadsheet, right, and you're a person that didn't necessarily respond to the campaign, but I want to get to know you, for whatever reason, you know, I want to get to know you. So the first thing I would do when I come to your profile is I'm going to look at your content, right? So you've got your featured content here. You've got your, you know, you've got your other content, your daily content here. I might jump into some of your content celebrating National Small Business Week and make a comment on there, right? Let my brand show up a little bit deeper. Right now, the next day or the day after, I might come back to your profile. And because I just showed up on your content, and I know you see that stuff, we've all got some vanity, right? We're paying attention to this stuff. I might ask you about living in Ann Arbor, right? I've got some experience in Ann Arbor. You were a swim coach. I might ask you a little bit about swim coaching, which you and I have had this conversation. I know a famous swim coach who's coached some gold medalists. So I might start a conversation about that. I might look at your featured media and start a conversation about a piece of featured media. I could look at your job experience, talk about some of the things I know about Merrill Lynch, perhaps, whatever that is. Talk about tell me about the food collector. Here's all I'm doing, you guys. Groups is a great one for this as well. So I might take a look at all the groups that you're a part of to see where, what sort of things interest you personally and professionally. Now, all I'm doing is going through your profile, Tim, piece by piece by piece, looking for commonalities to send you a direct message, right? Oh, Tim, I didn't realize you went to the University of Michigan. What was it like living in Ann Arbor at that time? That's a question that if you get in your inbox is going to elicit a response from you, right? It's not about business. It's a pretty straightforward question. It's non-threatening. So 3 times a day, and Caitlin, this is where Derek's not going to do it, but that's okay. For others on the call, if you do this with 3 people a day, that's 15 people every week. It really, literally is only going to take you about maybe 2 minutes per person. That's 15 people every week. You are going to get responses from at least 8 of those people. You're going to start a new conversation with at least 8 of those people. They got to be consistent with it, right? But that right there is the single most effective thing. Everything else is kind of keeping up, right? Keeping up with the engagement, the people you want to engage with, keeping your content out there, keeping your brand present, right? Making sure you're keeping up with your inbox. But this the rapport focused 3 people a day is the single most important thing you can do. Now, don't try to sell somebody. Of course, if they say, "Oh, hey, I just received an inheritance," you want to have that conversation. Don't reject the opportunity to do business with them. But if you're doing webinars consistently, you don't have to be selling to anybody to convert on LinkedIn. That's not the goal of LinkedIn. LinkedIn is about building rapport, social equity. And then when you do a webinar, if you've done a good job building rapport, when you do a webinar, your webinar attendance is going to skyrocket. So that is the LinkedIn daily routine. Literally take you about 15 minutes a day. You're going to post 3 times a week. You're going to manage your inbox and other notifications. You're going to engage with the people on your list of key people to engage with. And then you're going to reach out to 3 people a day. That spreadsheet that you export from LinkedIn is a great tracking sheet for that as well, just to make sure that you're reaching out to new people every day. 7 to 10 new conversations every week, and it's going to grow your webinar attendance dramatically if you're consistent with it. And that's it, you guys. That's it. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. I'll send you the link to this recording. I'll send you a link to this little guide that I built out to keep you on pace. 1 second here while I stop the share. All right. Brent made it. Matthew made it. Good to see you guys. What questions do you have? It's fairly simple. It's fairly straightforward. It is, but it's highly, highly effective for, for building rapport, gaining webinar attendance, and of course the webinar attendance is your conversion event. Those are your people that are really, those are people that are ready to have a deeper conversation. And I know in some cases you guys need that, right? So I know some of you that are on this call have done some webinars to 2 or 3 or 4 people before. Let's start doing it to 10 and 12 and 15 people. That's the top of your pipeline every month. So I'll pause for a second now just to see what questions that you have. But again, I'll send the recording off to you probably tomorrow, and I'll get the link to the guide in that email as well. So going once, going twice. All right, no questions. Cool. That means I either did a really good job or I lost you guys somewhere along the way. So if you have questions, I'm very easy to reach out to. I'm responsive. So if you have questions, let me know. We're going to try to do this every week. There may be weeks where it's not possible. I do have a question in here. All right. Would you throw in webinar attendees to re-engage? I think that's a great idea. I think that's a wonderful idea. So if somebody has attended your webinar in the past, you can certainly put them on your engagement list for sure. They are prospects at that point, right? They're at your webinar because they have a need or an interest in the topic you're talking about. Yeah, they are, I would put them on your re-engagement list, like my whiteboard down here. Those are great people to be interacting with consistently. A lot of times it's just, they don't know you well enough, right? A lot of times they have a need and you're providing the information, but they don't know you well enough at that point to, it's to know you, like you, trust you, right? So part of your task is the repetitive communication and interaction to build that trust and knowledge. So that's a great idea. Okay, so look out for the invite to next Wednesday. We'll get that out end of the week. And if you guys have topics that you want me to talk about, I am all ears on that stuff too. So let me know. I want to make this the best thing for you, for all of us to. Is there a best 15 minutes for more eyeballs? That's a great question. I tend to get most of my interaction early in the morning. So even if I engage later in the day, most of the responses don't come through until morning. So what I think ends up happening is, as if you guys are the same creature of habit that I am, checking email in the morning, notifications, catching notifications then, I think a lot of people jump into LinkedIn in the morning. So that's a great question. I would say the best 15 minutes, there's not a bad time, right? But the best 15 minutes when you're going to find the most active audience is morning for sure. And because we keep getting questions, I'm going to hang out for a little bit. And yes, I did shave the mustache, but you can tell I'm growing it back. So it was an immediate regret. My kids were like, "Dad, you have a tiny upper lip." So yes, the mustache is coming back for better or worse. All right, you guys, thank you for being here. Thank you for being our client, working with Social Advisors and trusting in our team to provide good service for you. I'm always here. If you got questions, want to schedule a little bit of time to talk, I am an email, a phone call, a LinkedIn message away. Thank you. See you soon.